Hello, this is Thomas Sim. I'm presenting today on the part on real property gains tax in brief. Um, Sunday, 15th of December 2019. Uh, we have a lot of questions about changes in the tax system for every year that the budget is mentioned. We already have the headache before even the actual print come out in the newspaper. It's likely very confusing to a lot of people about what is the taxes that may affect calculation of the taxable income. So real property gains tax in fact is a part where you dispose of property lah. So of course it's not as much as income tax. But anyway, it actually affects the uh, strategy and also the planning for a lot of people on whether to dispose of their property or not. So of course the speculator part of it is that real property gains tax, the intention is in fact to slow down the buy and the sell process. So buying and then flipping it, they call it a flipper. So to minimize the flipping for the first few years of purchasing the property, because the purchasing and the flipping of the property it will actually become speculatively making the price of a property go up. So people tend to buy and then make a huge profit later, because knowing that the property will fetch a higher price soon after launch. So this effect of tax, higher level of tax on these gains would actually reduce the people speculating on it, because the chances to make profit after having deducted the tax is actually not much. If you have this thinking in mind that I want to make a huge profit by flipping it, but then a lot of tax will be paid, then no point for me to do so. Therefore, this particular tax regime is actually for the purpose of reducing speculation in real property. However, we are not going into that direction this afternoon. We are looking at the basic, the very basic of real property gains tax. Let me begin. Recent changes in the real property gains tax 2019 and also 2020 budget is about the valuation debt. So what is important to know is that in the future, that means 2020 disposal, the value of the acquisition price is fixed at January 1st, 2013. Whereas this year, which is the last year's 2019 budget, it says that it is value acquisition price value at January 1st, 2000, year 2000. So what does it mean? In fact, I want to highlight is in fact here. I just blow this out for better understanding. What is meaning by gain? The real as real property gains. And in fact, real property gains is about how much you make from the selling, which is disposal of your property compared to when the time you bought it. So if you bought it at 10 ringgit and you sold it at 50 ringgit, you make a gain of 40 ringgit. And then this gain, you minus out some allowable deductions and losses, which you probably have not heard of, but never mind. Just omit this if you do not want to get confused. You just remember that property gains is about your selling price now, and then minus whatever price you bought it for, and then it means a gain. And this gain is levied taxable RPGT rate. So this RPGT rate is the one that I highlighted just now, which means if you sell it within the first 3 years, the rate for percentage taxable will be very high at 30%. But if you wait until it is 4th and 5th year and above, then the number of years pass, therefore the rate comes down. So we can see in the second slide. So this slide says that in the real property gains tax RPGT for individuals, there is another category for corporates, and also the third category is for foreigner. So here is only showing individual. So generally for public like you and me, for first year, if you bought it in the case and sold it within the first year, is 30%. So in the 2019 and 2020, roughly 30% for the first 3 years. Meaning to say, if you bought the property and sort of sell it between the year you bought until the third year later, then within the 3 years period, whatever gains in the example just now, you are looking at, you bought at 10 ringgit, you sold at 50 ringgit, so the 40 ringgit will be your gain. The gain will be levied at 30%, payable to the government as the tax. So if you waited for another year, then you reduce it to 20%. You can see 20%, and then if you waited again on the fifth year, it becomes 15%, and then thereafter at 5%. So what happened in 2019 was that the government has changed it to whatever earlier years, that means 2020, or whether it's 1998 or whether it's 1960, you still have to pay for 5%. Whereas in the case of 2020, 2020, the valuation that would be 2013. So of course, if you have an old house which is inherited from your parent around 1980 something, then it will be valued at January on the 2013. 2013. So of course, 2013, the price of property has gone up. So the house that your parents bought in the 1980s, probably during that time it was 100,000. Now this house is worth probably in the market about 800,000. And then if you use 100,000 and 800,000, and there will be a 700,000 gain. But in this case, because it is valued on the January 2013, at that time, probably the house was already at 600,000. So instead of 100,000, it becomes 600,000 at 2013, and therefore the gain was 600,000 less from the 800,000. So probably only 200,000 gain instead of in the earlier calculation, 100,000 and 800,000, it was actually 700,000 gain. So as I said just now, for individual, there is a 5%. For non-citizen, foreigner, it is 10%, and also for companies, it's also 10%, even after 5 years. So how to reduce the real property gains tax? This is one question that a lot of people ask. How do I reduce paying for the real property gains tax? There are only two ways actually. Of course, there are many ways. Just that on paper, if you look at the formula of how to calculate the gains, it's actually either reducing your disposal price, that means reducing your selling price, or increase your acquisition price, increase the price that you bought it from. So this is a stupid answer, right? Because everybody knows I won't reduce my disposal price. I also won't have the way of how do I actually able to increase the acquisition price. It was already long years has passed. So actually, there were reasons. People say it is a stupid way of answering the question, but actually it's not stupid. It's not stupid because of how you look at the subsequent slides. So there are reasons of acquisition price. How do you increase your acquisition price? Actually, there is a calculation to it, and all these calculations if you have those data and those evidence, you can actually show it and then able to increase your acquisition price. So when you increase your acquisition price, the gain is less. So this acquisition price includes what? Includes the commission that you have paid to the agent to help you to source for the property, and then any legal fee that you have paid to acquire this property, which includes also valuation fee, because valuation fee is for the purpose of the loan, and then loan is by the purchaser, so the purchaser need to pay valuation through the bank, so that the bank would approve it, and then therefore give the loan. So any fee in the process of getting the property, including stamp duty, you have paid, so these are actually added to the acquisition price. So the acquisition price is, instead of the actual price that is shown onto the sales and purchase agreement, actually includes all these costs of acquiring the property. So in short, the effort that is used to acquire the property all is calculated into the acquisition price. Similarly, how to reduce your disposal price? You will dispose it with the cost on how to dispose it. So include the commission, you get an agent to sell for you. You also paid for some legal fee lah. And then there are some possibility that you actually make it look nicer, or you repair the property, make it more beautiful, and then you engage certainly some maybe photographer or some person who can take a nice video. So all these are costs that is added to the running to promote the property. So all this can be used as a way to reduce your disposal price. And then plus also in case that you have issue about defending the title of the property lah. So in case there are costs involved, like defending it from somebody claiming it, if there was a dispute in a way earlier on, those costs to involve in defending your property. In fact, in short, the effort paid to try to get it sold. So if you have a property, the effort that you have put in to try to get it sold should be actually able to take out as reducing your disposal price. So you have a reduced disposal price and increase acquisition price. So that means the total gain is in fact less. And therefore you actually can reduce your chargeable RPGT. So what can increase the RPGT? It can actually increase by you increasing the chances that in fact you claim certain things. Let's say the gain goes up because you have forfeited money collected, insurance cover, you probably at one time report some damages to the property, and then the insurance company pay you some sum of money. So this money actually means that you have gain. So if you gain, that means the gain is taxable. So the property enable you to make money. So this means that it will increase the profit of the property, and then therefore it is taxable. So by actually recovering forfeited money, compensation received, insurance recovered, the property become more valuable. So in this case, the gains will be taxable. So no gain, no loss is another way where you can avoid. Meaning to say, if the person who purchased from you is actually within this category, parent to a child or few of them children, and grandparent to grandchildren, or grandchild, husband to wife, or spouse means wife to husband also can. There is no gain and no loss, and then the transfer, the price will be at the acquisition price to the person who received it. So if you say you have inherited a house from your parent, that means your parent inherited it, let's say to you, and then it was purchased 1980 something at around 100,000. So now you inherited this house. So there is no gain, no loss, and then you actually inherited it at 100,000, or the previous whatever price that it was acquired. So on the next transfer, on the next buyer, then if you have sold it for 800,000, then there is a 700,000 gain. So disposal deemed at market value, this is an important area because a lot of time people thought that they are buying at a cheaper property. That means the cheaper special rate property, like say fire sale or in case there is a special deal. Then this means that they do not need to pay for the real property gains tax, but it's not true. This is important to emphasize on the fact that RPGT calculation can be quite complicated, and then also for the fact that a lot of scenarios are not so clear. And to mention a few, just for example, say you have a particular relative who in the storyline is overseas, and then that person now has no descendant or no children. So the relative wants to give it as a gift. That means give it as a gift in his will, to give it as a totally no money exchange to a relative, like you are the nephew or you are the niece. So in this scenario, is there a real property gain tax levied? So this is a question. So a lot of people tend to ask this type of question. And another thing is that sometimes in real property gain tax, there is a scenario like when one person has got trouble in financial trouble lah, let's say. Now he has a few pieces of property, and therefore this property is actually used to pay off the financial debts. So in such a case, sometimes the property is valued as not in an arm's length situation. There is no selling. That means the person does not promote promote a property, and then there is no buyer coming to negotiate. It is already a no choice scenario lah, that it is sort of pushed to the corner to let go of the property. So a lot of time, this type of property in exchange for payment of debts, financial difficulties, is actually below its value. So the government in such a scenario may be taken advantage of lah. That means the government does not collect tax according to the correct value of the property. So another type of scenario is a situation where you donate certain property as certain types of gift to an association or to a certain body of good cause. So this type of good cause, sometimes in the law, may not be given the exemption uh, as in the way that this society has not been given that particular exemption. So in such a case, although it was a gift, it has no value in its case, but then the property gain tax law says that it is part of the law lah. So that need to be paid a certain property tax. So all these are actually spelled out in the Schedule 2, Para 9, Para 11, and Para 12. So meaning to say, if you go back to the Act, Real Property Gain Tax Act, you can actually look for these paragraphs, paragraph 9, paragraph 11, and paragraph 12 in the schedule, second schedule. So generally, I don't want to go into too detail, and the thing is that just to highlight to you that the word to use is that deemed as market value. So what is deemed as market value? So this is the one deemed at market value. So when the relationship is not recognized, gift is a usual name that is given. So this is one of the paragraphs, paragraph 12. So market value or the transacted, usually if it is gift, is no value lah. But of course, if there is a case whereby transacted value is out of norm, so that means somebody is trying to sell something at the very low price, like I give you a house, but you pay me 10 ringgit. So this type of situation, although it is 10 ringgit, is considered under gift, and also considered as probably the Director General would consider it as reason under one of the sections, section 25, to give a value instead of that particular 10 ringgit. So of course, to remember one thing in taxation, either is Stamp Act or is RPGT Act. The usual thing that you need to remember is that it is market value or higher, not market value or lower, because the government need to make sure that this particular reason that nobody uses as a way to cheat the government out of the collection of taxes. So this is one part to highlight to you. RPGT in brief, we are not going to talk too detail into all these quite confusing area. So just remember disposal price and also acquisition price. And to reduce your RPGT, avoid the RPGT Act at the first 5 or first 3 years, especially first 3 years, 30%. Also incur costs in getting your property sold, or getting property to be nice to put up for sale. All these costs can be actually able to reduce your tax. Right. Some of these issues sometimes people tend to ask me is about asking the buyer to pay cash to reduce the transacted price. So on paper, on the sales and purchase agreement, it's actually under reporting lah. So this is transacted price in the case is actually much less than the actual total transaction. So for the lawyer side, the lawyer if doesn't because both side the seller and the buyer lah. So the part on the seller side, of course he wants to reduce the disposal price so that he can pay less real property gain tax. So to him, the seller side, he wants the sales and purchase agreement to be on a lower price. So of course, the buyer said, okay, in order to do that, we pay some under table, then therefore there is no obvious transacted price on the paper lah. Then the other part is that the buyer side has to negotiate so getting this advantage for the seller to the seller's advantage therefore he needs to ask for a lower, maybe negotiate for a certain small discount so in order for him to come up with so much cash. So unless he got a motivation to do so, he won't pay so much cash. So a lot of time these are questions asked by general public that some of this cash can surface out from some other unknown sources. So I'm not here to talk about all those things. But generally, the idea is to reduce the disposal price and therefore able to save the real property gain tax on the seller side. So the seller side, in fact, goes to the fact that he sold it at a lower than actual price. So whether people say it's a double sales and purchase agreement, one for the purpose of RPGT and another for the actual part, I don't want to comment. So generally, the issue is if it is too far out, that means if the Director General feels that it is not the correct way to do it, then he would go under Section 25. So avoidance of tax, that means somebody is caught to be avoiding the tax or evading the tax, then Director General can use his power as of value, as in deemed as market value. So whether there is some transaction under table or not, he would just say that the real property gain tax is to be calculated from market value. So he has that power. So anyway, not in the discussion today. Thank you very much for the following up of this video. And RPGT is a tough paper for property tax in D04, Diploma in Estate Agency, course by the BOVIP now. So Board of Valuers, Appraisers, Estate Agents and Property Managers, paper D04 in part 1. So a lot of people actually failed this paper. So just to let you know, do prepare early for this exam. Thank you very much.